Well, the British royals have posed for a new formal photograph. You notice there, she's the only splash of color in this picture. But take a close look at her tiara.
When a centuries-old royal tradition collided with modern family dynamics, the resulting explosion would expose fault lines no one knew existed. The tension within the British royal family had been building for months, hidden beneath layers of carefully orchestrated public appearances and diplomatic smiles. But on a crisp October evening in 2024, the tension finally erupted into open conflict, and at the center of it all was a glittering piece of jewelry worth millions, carrying emotional value that no appraiser could ever quantify. This is the story of how Queen Camilla's determination to assert her position as consort, Princess Catherine's struggle to maintain her dignity, and Prince William's fierce protective instincts converged in one of the most dramatic confrontations the modern monarchy has witnessed. It's a tale that reveals the hidden power struggles within palace walls, where every gesture carries meaning, and every piece of jewelry tells a story of belonging, exclusion, and the eternal question: who really holds power in the House of Windsor? The history behind the jewels. To understand why this particular tiara became a flashpoint, we must first understand its journey through royal hands. The King George VI sapphire and diamond tiara features a stunning array of sapphires set in a geometric Art Deco-inspired design, surrounded by brilliant cut diamonds that catch light from every angle. Its distinctive deep blue stones were sourced from Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and the craftsmanship represents the pinnacle of mid-century royal jewelry design. But what makes this piece truly significant isn't its monetary value, estimated conservatively at £2 million, but rather the meaning Queen Elizabeth II attached to it when she chose to give it to Catherine. Royal historians note that Elizabeth was exceptionally deliberate about which pieces she assigned to which family members. Unlike the crown jewels, which belonged to the state, certain items were designated as personal gifts. These gifts carried a specific message: you are permanently part of this family, and I trust you with our legacy. When Catherine married William in 2011, she entered a family still healing from the Diana years, a period when the monarchy's treatment of an outsider had resulted in tragedy and lasting damage to the institution's reputation. Elizabeth, determined that Catherine's experience would be different, presented the sapphire tiara privately, weeks after the wedding. According to those close to the family, Elizabeth told Catherine, "These stones have borne witness to our family's history. Now they will bear witness to yours. Wear them with pride and know that you belong here completely." For Catherine, who had spent years being scrutinized as an outsider, as Waity Katie in the cruel tabloid parlance, that moment represented final acceptance. The tiara became her talisman, her proof that she had been welcomed not just into a role, but into a family. The first time she wore it publicly, at a state banquet in 2013, she received a handwritten note from Elizabeth the next morning. "The sapphires never looked more beautiful. You did them proud." This history makes what happened in October 2024 all the more shocking: the gathering storm. The first signs of trouble emerged not with dramatic confrontation, but through subtle shifts that palace insiders know to watch for. In the months following King Charles III's coronation in May 2023, Queen Camilla had been quietly but systematically working to establish her position as the preeminent female royal. This is neither unusual nor inappropriate. A queen consort has every right to define her role. However, those close to the family began noticing that Camilla's assertion of precedence seemed specifically directed at Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and future queen consort. There were small incidents first. At a Buckingham Palace reception in June 2024, Camilla wore a diamond necklace that Catherine had worn just weeks earlier. When questioned, Camilla's spokesperson noted that all significant pieces in the royal collection are available for the Queen's use as she sees fit. Technically accurate, but the timing raised eyebrows. In August, during the royal family's traditional summer gathering at Balmoral, tensions reportedly flared over seating arrangements. Protocol dictates specific positioning, but Camilla insisted on a configuration that placed Catherine noticeably farther from the center than tradition would suggest. William objected strenuously. The matter was ultimately resolved by King Charles, who ruled in Camilla's favor while privately asking her to be mindful of family sensitivities. But the real issue was about something deeper than jewelry or seating charts. It was about two women navigating the question of what it means to be queen. Camilla had waited decades for her position, enduring public scorn and comparison to the beloved Diana. Now that she finally held the title, she was determined to exercise every privilege it afforded. Catherine, meanwhile, represented the future, younger, more popular with the public, and carrying the weight of eventually becoming queen consort herself. The stage was set for collision. The request that wasn't really a request. The invitation came through official channels in mid-September 2024. Catherine's private secretary received a formal communication from Queen Camilla's office regarding the upcoming state visit by the Emperor and Empress of Japan, scheduled for mid-October. The communication was professionally worded but clear. Queen Camilla wished to wear the King George VI sapphire tiara for the state banquet. The piece would perfectly complement the diplomatic significance of the occasion and demonstrate the continuity and depth of the royal collection. Catherine's secretary immediately recognized the delicacy of the situation. "This is highly unusual, Your Royal Highness," she explained. "Personal gifts are traditionally outside the scope of items that can be requested. The precedent this sets could be problematic." Catherine understood immediately. If she agreed, every piece of jewelry she owned could theoretically be subject to similar requests. If she refused, she risked being painted as difficult or uncooperative. She consulted with Lady Susan Hussey, one of her most trusted mentors. Lady Susan was characteristically blunt. "The late queen gave you that tiara to cement your place in the family. Using it to assert someone else's precedence over you would have horrified her." But Catherine also understood palace politics. She was thinking not just about the immediate situation, but about the next 20 or 30 years. Charles was king, and Camilla was his wife. Picking battles wisely was essential. Moreover, Catherine genuinely believed in the importance of family unity. She didn't want to be the source of division, so she made a decision she would come to deeply regret. She agreed. Her response was carefully worded. "Princess Catherine is honored that Her Majesty the Queen wishes to wear the sapphire tiara for such an important occasion. The princess will make the piece available and trusts that its historical significance will be appreciated and respected." The subtext was clear to anyone who knew how to read palace communications. "I'm doing this under protest, but I'm too gracious to say so directly." William's absence and Catherine's isolation. The timing of the request was not coincidental. Prince William was scheduled to be in Scotland for 3 days in early October. Camilla's office knew this. The formal request arrived the day after William departed, and logistics were expedited with unusual speed. Catherine, handling the situation alone, felt increasingly uncomfortable as the event approached. Palace officials from Camilla's team arrived at Kensington Palace to collect the tiara with a level of formality that felt almost aggressive. The head of Camilla's jewels collection accepted the case with barely concealed triumph. "Her Majesty will be most grateful," she said, though her tone suggested obligation rather than gratitude. "The sapphires will photograph beautifully. It's important that the Queen present the strongest possible image." The implications stung, that Camilla's use would somehow be more impressive, more appropriate, more queenly than Catherine's own wearing of it. After they left, Catherine sat alone for over an hour, struggling with an emotion she rarely allowed herself: anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but the cold, bitter anger of someone who has been systematically diminished. She called her sister Pippa, one of the few people with whom she could be completely honest. "They've taken it," she said simply. Pippa heard everything in those 3 words. "Does William know? He's still in Scotland, and by the time he returns, it will be too late to do anything except make a scene." "Maybe a scene is exactly what's needed," Pippa replied. "She's walked all over you, and everyone knows it." But Catherine couldn't allow herself to think that way. She had built her entire royal identity on graciousness, on being the peacemaker. To abandon that now felt like losing herself. The state banquet and public humiliation. The evening of the state banquet arrived with all the pageantry Britain's monarchy could orchestrate. Inside Buckingham Palace, the state dining room glittered beneath massive chandeliers. The table stretched impossibly long, set with gold plates and crystal glasses. Catherine had considered attending despite her misgivings, but ultimately, she couldn't bring herself to watch another woman wear her tiara while she played a supporting role. The official explanation cited prior commitments related to her early childhood initiative. Most observers accepted it without question, but those closest to the family understood the real reason. When cameras captured Queen Camilla's entrance, wearing the sapphire tiara with her navy gown, certain insiders winced at what they recognized as a public humiliation of the future queen. The tiara was spectacular. The deep blue sapphires created perfect visual harmony with her dress, and the diamonds caught every camera flash with dazzling brilliance. Television commentators responded with the exact praise Camilla had sought. "Her Majesty looks absolutely regal," one observed. "That stunning sapphire tiara, believed to be from the Queen Mother's collection, is an inspired choice." The error in attribution was the final insult. Not only had Catherine's personal gift been appropriated, but now its provenance was being publicly misrepresented. The tiara's true history was being erased in real time. At Kensington Palace, Catherine watched the coverage alone. With each camera angle that lingered on the sapphires, she felt something hardening inside her. Not just hurt, but a cold clarity about the true nature of her position. She had spent 13 years trying to be everything the family needed: dutiful, gracious, scandal-free, hard-working. And still, it wasn't enough to protect what was hers. By the time the broadcast ended, Catherine had made a decision. She would tell William everything, not just about the tiara, but about the pattern of small humiliations, and she would leave the response to him. William's fury unleashed. Prince William returned to Kensington Palace the following morning, exhausted but eager to see his family. He found Catherine in her study, ostensibly reviewing papers. But the moment he entered, he knew something was profoundly wrong. "What's happened?" he asked immediately. "Nothing that can't be managed," Catherine replied, the carefulness of her words confirming that something significant had occurred. William knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. "Catherine, tell me." And so she did. The whole story emerged. Camilla's request, the impossible position it created, the decision to acquiesce, the state banquet she couldn't bear to attend, the misattribution on television, the systematic pattern of similar incidents over previous months. As William listened, his expression progressed through confusion, disbelief, concern, and finally landing on something Catherine had rarely seen: pure, undiluted fury. "She wore your tiara," he said flatly. "The tiara Granny gave you as a wedding gift, the most personal piece of jewelry you own. She asked to borrow it," Catherine said weakly. "I felt I had no choice." William stood abruptly, beginning to pace. "You always have a choice, but she made sure you understood that the consequences of refusing would be unacceptable." He turned to face her. "This is bullying, Catherine. Sophisticated, hidden behind protocol, but bullying nonetheless." He spent the next hour making phone calls, gathering information. What he discovered confirmed Catherine's account and revealed additional details. Mrs. Patricia Hartwell, who had dressed 4 generations of royal women, spoke with unusual candor. "Your grandmother would never have tolerated this," she told William. "She understood the difference between sharing collection pieces and appropriating personal gifts." By evening, William's fury had cooled into something more dangerous, a calculated determination to confront his stepmother directly. He called his father first, hoping Charles might understand the gravity of the situation. The conversation did not go well. "William, you're overreacting," Charles said wearily. "Camilla simply wanted to make the best impression for an important state visit." "It's not part of the collection," William replied. "It was a personal wedding gift from Granny to Catherine." "These distinctions are artificial," Charles insisted. "We're one family." William's control snapped. "Don't you dare tell me what Granny would have understood. She chose that tiara specifically for Catherine, and you've allowed Camilla to treat it like a prop. I won't have you speaking about the Queen in that manner," Charles said sharply. "Then perhaps you should have stopped the Queen from humiliating my wife," William shot back. The call ended badly, resolving nothing. The confrontation. William requested a private meeting with Camilla the following morning. When her office tried to delay, William made clear that wasn't acceptable. Tomorrow morning at 10, at Clarence's house, just the two of us. The implicit threat was obvious. If Camilla refused, William would escalate publicly. The meeting was scheduled. William arrived exactly on time, dressed formally but not in military uniform. He wanted this to be personal. Camilla greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "William, how lovely!" Though the formality is rather concerning. "This isn't a family dinner conversation," William replied, remaining standing. "This is about your treatment of my wife and the systematic way you've undermined her position." Camilla's smile vanished. "I beg your pardon? The tiara," William said bluntly. "You pressured Catherine into surrendering her wedding gift. You reframed a deeply personal item as communal property, and then you allowed it to be misattributed on television." "I asked to borrow a piece of jewelry for an important state event," Camilla replied coolly. Catherine agreed. "Where's the problem?" "The problem is that you asked for something you knew she couldn't refuse without consequences. You exploited her desire to maintain family harmony. As queen, I have certain prerogatives," Camilla said. "You're the king's wife," William corrected sharply, "not the sovereign. And being married to my father doesn't give you the right to appropriate what belongs to my wife." The room crackled with tension. "Your wife understood the importance of the occasion," Camilla said. "She put duty above sentiment. She put survival above self-respect," William shot back. "Because you've created an environment where saying no means being labeled difficult. That's manipulation." "How dare you?" Camilla began, but William cut her off. "I dare because someone has to. Catherine won't defend herself. My father won't intervene. So it falls to me to say what everyone's thinking. Your behavior has been unacceptable, and it ends now." "You have no authority over me," Camilla said, her voice shaking. "I have every authority to protect my wife," William replied. "And I'm putting you on notice. Catherine's personal property is personal. Any future requests will be declined. And if you attempt to pressure her again, I will make this public in a way that will embarrass us all." The threat hung in the air. Camilla understood William was serious. "The tiara will be returned tomorrow," Camilla said icily. "Today," William corrected. "By noon." He left without another word. The aftermath and new reality. The tiara was returned to Kensington Palace by 11:30 that morning, delivered by courier without ceremony or comment. Catherine received it in silence, examining the velvet case as though checking for damage, before setting it carefully in her private safe. "It's home," she said simply when William returned from meetings later that day. "For good," he replied. "She won't ask again." "You're certain?" "Absolutely certain." The confrontation rippled through the royal household with surprising speed. Staff who had witnessed months of tension suddenly found themselves observing a new dynamic. The Prince and Princess of Wales were no longer deferring automatically to the King and Queen. A boundary had been established, and everyone understood it. King Charles attempted to mediate, calling a family meeting that included only the four principals. It was, by all accounts, a tense and difficult conversation. Charles urged everyone to move past the incident in the interest of institutional stability. Camilla offered a carefully worded statement that stopped well short of actual apology, acknowledging that misunderstandings had occurred. William accepted this minimally, but he also made clear that certain lines were now firmly drawn. "Catherine's personal property is off limits," he stated flatly. "Her possessions from Granny, from my mother, from me, all of it is private and protected. If that creates inconvenience for state occasions, then other arrangements will need to be made." The meeting ended without warmth, but with a grudging understanding of new realities. In the weeks that followed, subtle changes became visible to those who knew where to look. Joint engagements, featuring all four royals, became less frequent. When they did appear together, the body language spoke volumes. Polite distance rather than familial warmth. The press, always alert to signs of royal discord, began speculating about tensions and different approaches to duty. Palace officials worked overtime to present an image of unity, but the more perceptive royal correspondents sensed something fundamental had shifted. Catherine, meanwhile, found her voice in ways that surprised even those closest to her. At a charity event 3 weeks after the tiara incident, she wore the sapphires publicly for the first time since their return. The choice was deliberate, a quiet but unmistakable statement. "This is mine. It represents my place in this family, and I will not be diminished." The press coverage was overwhelmingly positive. The Princess of Wales looked radiant in sapphires, one paper noted. The tiara, a personal gift from the late Queen Elizabeth II, has become one of Catherine's signature pieces. The correct attribution appeared in virtually every outlet. The false narrative that had briefly taken hold during the state banquet was overwritten by the truth, repeated until it became fixed in public consciousness. Reflections on power and position. The tiara incident, as it became known among palace insiders, revealed fundamental truths about how power operates within the modern British monarchy. Despite its ancient traditions and elaborate protocols, the institution ultimately functions like any complex family system. Personalities clash, resentments build, and conflicts over seemingly small matters reveal much deeper struggles for recognition and control. For Queen Camilla, the incident represented a miscalculation born of insecurity. Despite her title and position, she remained acutely aware that public affection for her would never match that directed toward Catherine. Her attempt to assert dominance through appropriating Catherine's jewelry backfired, exposing her actions to interpretation as bullying rather than appropriate exercise of queenly prerogative. For Princess Catherine, it was a painful lesson in the limits of graciousness. Her instinct toward accommodation and peacekeeping, traits that had served her well in navigating her early years as a royal, had been exploited. She learned that maintaining dignity sometimes requires drawing hard lines, even when doing so creates discomfort. For Prince William, the incident crystallized his understanding of his role not just as heir to the throne, but as protector of his own family unit within the larger institution. His fierce defense of Catherine signaled to everyone, his father, his stepmother, the palace staff, and ultimately the public, that he would not allow institutional concerns to override his personal loyalties. And for King Charles, caught between his wife and his son, it highlighted the impossible balancing act of his position. His attempt to smooth over the conflict satisfied no one and arguably weakened his moral authority with both parties. The broader implications. Beyond the immediate family drama, the tiara incident raised important questions about how the monarchy functions in the 21st century. The institution has survived for over 1,000 years, partly through its ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining core traditions. But that adaptation requires wisdom about which traditions serve the monarchy's interests and which merely serve individual egos. The question of how jewelry and other royal assets should be allocated touches on deeper issues of ownership, inheritance, and the relationship between personal and institutional identity. If everything a royal owns is subject to requisition by more senior family members, it creates an environment of insecurity and resentment. But if personal ownership is too strongly protected, it can fragment the collection and undermine the visual continuity that helps the monarchy project timeless majesty. Queen Elizabeth II had understood this balance instinctively. She made clear distinctions between crown property, collection pieces available for use by working royals, and personal gifts that carried specific emotional significance. Her careful stewardship maintained both institutional needs and individual dignity. The tiara incident suggested that this balance had been disrupted under the new reign, and that new understandings would need to be negotiated, probably through exactly the kind of painful confrontation that had just occurred. Royal historians note that similar conflicts have erupted throughout the monarchy's history, often at moments of transition between reigns. Queen Mary was notorious for appropriating jewelry from family members, sometimes through requests that functioned as demands. The current Elizabeth's own mother had conflicts with Wallis Simpson over jewels after Edward VIII's abdication. These struggles reflect eternal human dynamics around status, possession, and the symbols through which we communicate belonging. What makes the current situation unique is the transparency of modern media and public expectations of fairness. In previous generations, such conflicts remained entirely private, resolved or not behind palace walls with no public awareness. Today, with intense media scrutiny and public investment in the personal lives of royals, these conflicts inevitably become semi-public, shaping perceptions of the individuals and institution involved. Moving forward. In the months following the confrontation, both couples worked to establish a functional, if not warm, working relationship. State occasions required their cooperation, and both understood that visible family discord served no one's interests. Catherine and Camilla reached a cordial détente. They would never be close. Too much had happened for genuine friendship, but they could work together when necessary. Their public interactions became masterclasses in professional courtesy, appropriate smiles, brief conversations, careful body language that suggested respect without intimacy. William and his father slowly rebuilt their relationship, though it too had been damaged by Charles's initial dismissal of the situation. Their phone calls became more frequent, focused primarily on shared interests like environmental conservation and the practical work of the monarchy. The personal warmth that had characterized their relationship in earlier years remained elusive. The tiara itself was eventually worn by Catherine again at a state visit by the Spanish royal family in early 2025. She looked radiant, confident, and utterly comfortable in jewels that had been momentarily taken but ultimately restored. The Spanish Queen Letizia, a former journalist with a keen eye for interpersonal dynamics, reportedly told Catherine privately, "That tiara suits you perfectly, as though it was made for you alone." "It was given to me with love," Catherine replied, "and that's a gift no one can take away." Conclusion: what the tiara taught us. The story of Prince William's fury over Camilla forcing Catherine to lend her royal tiara is ultimately a story about dignity, boundaries, and the eternal human need to feel that what is ours cannot be arbitrarily taken. It reveals that even in the rarefied world of royalty, with its unimaginable wealth and privilege, people struggle with the same fundamental issues that affect us all: feeling respected, protecting what we value, standing up for those we love, and negotiating power within family systems. The incident also demonstrates that institutions, no matter how ancient or grand, depend on individuals to make them function. When those individuals act with wisdom, restraint, and genuine concern for others, the institution thrives. When they allow ego, insecurity, or the intoxication of power to guide their choices, even small conflicts can threaten the whole structure. In the end, the sapphire tiara returned to Catherine's keeping, but everyone involved had been changed by its temporary absence. Camilla learned that her position had limits she hadn't fully appreciated. Catherine learned that grace, without boundaries, becomes victimhood. William learned that defending those you love sometimes requires public confrontation, regardless of institutional preferences. And Charles learned that a king's authority extends only as far as his family's willingness to grant it. The tiara still sparkles with the same brilliance it always has, but now it carries an additional layer of meaning. Not just Elizabeth's gift of acceptance, but Catherine's hard-won understanding that acceptance means nothing if it can be revoked at someone else's convenience, and William's fierce declaration that some things and some people are worth fighting for. In the complex, fascinating, often maddening world of the British royal family, that's a lesson that will resonate for generations to come. The crown may be ancient, but the conflicts within it remain eternally, recognizably human. And perhaps that's exactly as it should be.